What kind of person sells someone else's land out of spite? HOA Karen. That's who. The moment I heard she'd sold my Lake Lotme family's legacy, the one piece of earth my grandfather poured his heart into, I felt my world crack. It wasn't just dirt. It was where I scattered his ashes, where I promised to build a home for my kids one day. I stood on that empty lot, staring at the surveyor's stakes marking someone else's future, my chest tight with betrayal. HOA, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, had done this. She'd twisted the rules, forged documents, and sold what wasn't hers because I dared challenge her at a community meeting. I'd called her out for bullying neighbors into compliance, for finding kids over lemonade stands, for turning our quiet lakeside haven into her personal fiefdom. Now, she'd gone too far. I wasn't just angry, I was done playing nice. The lake lot was my anchor. My grandfather bought it in the 70s. A scrappy immigrant who saved every penny to own something permanent. He'd sit by the water, telling me stories of his childhood in Hanoi, how he dreamed of a place where his family could breathe free. That lot was his dream, and mine. When I moved into the neighborhood, I didn't expect to find a tyrant like HOA running the HOA. She was a force, all sharp words and sharper glares, her voice booming at meetings, shutting down anyone who dared question her. At 5'2" and well over 200 pounds, she carried herself like she owned the world. Her floral dresses and loud makeup only amplified her presence, like a peacock strutting through a henhouse. I tried to stay civil, but when she started fining me for unapproved garden trellises my kids painted with daisies, I pushed back. I spoke up at a meeting, called her rules petty, and suggested we vote on new leadership. The room went silent. Her eyes locked on mine, and I knew I'd made an enemy. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. My lot, the one I'd paid taxes on for years, was sold. The buyer, some out-of-state developer, had already broken ground. I marched to HOA's house, my hands shaking, and found her on her porch, sipping iced tea like nothing was wrong. You sold my land, I demanded, my voice louder than I meant. She didn't even blink. You didn't follow HOA guidelines, she said, smirking. The lot was deemed abandoned. I handled it. Abandoned. I'd mowed it, maintained it, paid every dime. I dug into the paperwork, and there it was, her signature on a sale document, claiming she had authority. It was a lie. A bold, calculated lie. She'd manipulated the HOA bylaws, twisted some obscure clause about neglected property, and pushed the sale through without a vote. I hired a lawyer, a quiet guy named Tom who specialized in property disputes. He shook his head at the documents. This is fraud, he said. But she's clever. We'll need to play dirty to win. I started asking questions around the neighborhood. Turns out, I wasn't HOA's first victim. Old Mrs. Carter said HOA fined her $500 for a cracked mailbox, then tried to lien her house when she couldn't pay. Mike, the single dad down the street, said she'd threatened to report his dog as a dangerous breed unless he stopped questioning her landscaping fees. Everyone had a story, but they were too scared to act. HOA had power not just because she ran the HOA, but because she knew how to intimidate. She'd show up at your door with a clipboard, quoting rules like scripture, her voice dripping with condescension. But I wasn't scared. I was furious. Tom and I built a case, digging through county records, HOA minutes, anything we could find. We uncovered a pattern. HOA had been skimming dues, redirecting funds to her own accounts, and using her position to settle personal scores. The lot sale was just her latest move. Then came the twist. The kind of thing that hits you like a punch you didn't see coming. While combing through records, Tom found an email from HOA to the developer. She hadn't just sold my lot, she sold 3 others, all owned by people who'd crossed her. One belonged to Mrs. Carter's late husband, another to a family who'd moved away but kept their lot for retirement. HOA was running a racket, pocketing commissions while claiming she was cleaning up the neighborhood. The betrayal stung deeper now. This wasn't just about me. It was about everyone she'd hurt. I called a secret meeting at Mrs. Carter's house, inviting Mike, the retired couple across the lake, and a few others who'd whispered their complaints. We sat in her dim living room, the air heavy with fear and resolve. We can't let her keep doing this, I said. If we fight together, we can stop her. Mike nodded, his jaw tight. Mrs. Carter clutched her husband's old pocket knife, her hands trembling. We weren't just neighbors anymore, we were a rebellion. Our plan was simple but risky. The neighborhood's only access was a narrow wooden bridge over the lake, built decades ago and maintained by the HOA. It was the community's lifeline. Groceries, school buses, everything came across that bridge. Tom found a loophole. The bridge was on land technically owned by my family's trust, a detail buried in old deeds. HOA had never checked. I could file for a court order to close it, cutting off the neighborhood until the lot sales were investigated. It was drastic, but it would hit HOA where it hurt, her control. We filed the motion, and word spread fast. Neighbors whispered in driveways, some angry, some cheering us on. HOA caught wind and stormed to my house, banging on my door. You think you can ruin me? She shouted, her face red, her floral dress swaying like a battle flag. I'll bury you in court. I didn't flinch. See you there, I said, shutting the door. The fight was on. The court date came faster than I expected. The small county courtroom was packed. Neighbors squeezed into wooden benches, their eyes darting between me and HOA. She sat at the defendant's table, her lawyer a slick guy in a cheap suit who kept whispering in her ear. Tom stood beside me, calm but focused, his briefcase stuffed with evidence. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with gray hair pulled tight, called order. I testified first, laying out the fraud me lot. The others, HOA's forged signatures. Tom presented emails, bank records, and HOA minutes that showed her skimming funds. The room buzzed when Mrs. Carter took the stand, her voice shaky but clear, recounting how HOA had bullied her into near bankruptcy. Mike followed, his anger barely contained as he described her threats against his dog. HOA's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming she was just enforcing community standards. But the judge's frown deepened with every word. Then HOA took the stand. She was a performer, tears welling up as she claimed she'd only acted for the neighborhood's good. I'm protecting our property values, she said, her voice breaking just enough to seem sincere. But Tom was ready. He grilled her on the lot sales, the missing dues, the emails she couldn't explain. Her mask slipped, her voice turned sharp, her answers evasive. The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker, every neighbor leaning forward, waiting for the truth to crack open. The judge granted my motion to close the bridge pending a full investigation into the HOA's finances. Gasps filled the room. Hoa's face went pale, her hands gripping the table. Outside, on the bridge, I saw her afterward, yelling at her lawyer as neighbors watched from their yards. The bridge was roped off by noon. A sheriff's deputy posted to enforce the order. The fallout was chaos. Without the bridge, the neighborhood was cut off. Groceries had to be carried across a muddy footpath. Kids missed school buses. Some neighbors blamed me, shouting across their lawns that I was punishing everyone. Others brought me coffee, thanking me for standing up to HOA. She tried to rally support, knocking on doors with her clipboard, promising to fix the mess. But her power was crumbling. The county launched a full audit of the HOA, and the developer who bought my lot backed out, spooked by the lawsuit. One night, Mike called me over to Mrs. Carter's. She'd found an old photo of the lake lot, my grandfather standing by the water, smiling. "He'd be proud of you," she said, her eyes wet. That photo became my anchor again, a reminder why I was fighting. Hoa's empire fell apart in weeks. The audit uncovered years of fraud, tens of thousands in misdirected funds, fake invoices, even a secret account in her name. She was removed as HOA president, replaced by Mike, who promised transparency. The lots were returned to their rightful owners, including mine. I walked onto my land again, the surveyor's stakes gone, the earth still soft under my feet. I could almost feel my grandfather there, his quiet strength urging me on. HOA moved away. Her house sold to a young couple who waved when they saw me. The bridge reopened, but we voted to fund its upkeep ourselves. No more HOA control. The neighborhood felt lighter, like we'd all exhaled for the first time in years. Standing by the lake, I thought about what I'd learned. Fighting for what's right isn't just about winning, it's about showing others they can stand up too. Hoa's reign taught us how fear lets bullies thrive. But courage, even from one person, can break their grip. I planted a small tree on the lot, a promise to my kids and my grandfather that I'd build that home someday. The water sparkled under the sun, and for the first time in months, I felt whole. The neighborhood wasn't perfect, but it was ours again. We'd face the worst and come out stronger. Together. End.